The bye week is the midway point in the season, and how are the New England Patriots making the grades so far? My Patriots Paisan and I will give you our thoughts on the Patriots grades. Stay tuned. You're about to be locked into the Locked On Patriots podcast.
You are Locked On Patriots, your daily New England Patriots podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all of you Foxborough faithful, and thank you once again for making Locked On Patriots a daily part of your New England Patriots coverage and also your first listen every day. Remember, Locked On Patriots is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So smash that subscribe button and, of course, download, subscribe to, and follow Locked On Patriots wherever you get your podcasts. And Pats fans, it is the bye week, but that doesn't mean it's not still crossover Thursday all throughout the Locked On Podcast Network's platform. And of course, as such, our show today is presented by our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is so much fun and it's easy to play. There's no competing with other players. It's just you versus the projections available. You pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. It can literally take less than 60 seconds to enter. That's right, folks. It's that easy. We love PrizePicks. We know that you will too. And first-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. And thank you all for taking time out of your schedule to visit Locked On Patriots today and spend a little time with us and getting some of your daily Patriots coverage. And New England Patriots at 5-4 are ready to enjoy a bye week. The Patriots practiced on Wednesday. Not really a heavy-duty practice, folks. Really more of a walkthrough, just kind of a little tune-up before they take a much-deserved few days off before coming back next week and preparing to host the New York Jets at Gillette Stadium on Sunday, November 20th. But that is 10 days from now. And in the meantime, we continue to take stock in the Patriots' early part of the season, the first 9 games for the New England Patriots, and try to give a little bit of an evaluation on exactly how they did throughout those 9 games. Who better to join me today to help enlighten you on the Patriots' performance and maybe add a little numerical or number grade to it is my Patriots Paisan. He is a columnist extraordinaire for PatsFans.com and the co-host of not just one, but 2 amazing Patriots podcasts, Patriots 4th and 2, and of course, One Patriots Place. My Paisan joins me today, and I'm always happy when he does, Steve Balestrieri. Steve, thank you so much for joining me today. Welcome back to your weekly spot on Locked On Patriots.
Oh, my pleasure. As always, I look forward to us talking football every week. So, this is the time of year I miss living back up in New England because I could talk to you every day back then. So,
absolutely, and we definitely miss having you back up here. I certainly miss every time I walk through the doors at Gillette Stadium or walk near the practice fields. I definitely miss you, my friend. But you're always there in spirit. You're always there, giving your wisdom and counsel the way only you can. And we're going to pull upon that wisdom and counsel today, Steve, because as always in Patriots Nation, it is desperately needed. A lot going on. A lot of issues with the New England Patriots, and I know that people are not happy with the output, which, for lack of a better term, Steve, offensively and coaching-wise, I know the New England Patriots right now, fans are expecting more, and they have expected more, and they're hoping they're going to get more in the second half of the season. Special teams and defense, not so much. I think a lot of people are very satisfied, maybe even a little surprised by the output put out by those 2 units. Steve is going to provide his grades on the Patriots units in just a moment. But first, my friend, I wanted to touch upon this subject just a little bit because it's getting a little bit of traction in Patriots media. And that is after the game, this most recent game, folks, I apologize. After the Patriots' 26-3 victory over the Indianapolis Colts, we started to hear some of the Patriots in the locker room immediately after the game say that linebacker Shaquille Leonard of the Colts was calling out some of the Patriots' offensive plays before the snap was taken. This alerted some members of the media. You don't hear players usually be very vocal or verbal about something like this. Bill Belichick was asked about it the following day by reporters, and he essentially confirmed it and said it wasn't only Shaquille Leonard of the Colts that was doing it. CJ Mosley of the Jets was actually doing this in the previous week. Now, what's ironic is the Patriots have won both games, and I thought the offensive output was pedestrian at best, but it still was enough to get the job done. Now we're starting to hear from players, people that have actually played the game rather than people that actually write about it, like myself, that this is not all that uncommon for players to do. And Bill Belichick didn't seem overly alarmed about this either. He realizes that it's not something that should be sustained. The Patriots have to look to limit it or eliminate it, but it may not be catastrophic the way it's being portrayed in some circles of the media. Steve, you've been around this game a long time, especially from the defensive side of the ball. You have a really great insight. What is your take on this? Should the New England Patriots be worried about it, or is this a little much ado about nothing?
I think it's a little bit of both. And I know I'm like I'm sitting on the fence here, and it has happened through the years. I mean, I remember Tom Brady talking about, I think it was the Jets as well, that they were calling out plays before the Patriots ran it. As Bill said, I'm paraphrasing here, but, really good, smart players will recognize tendencies and they'll do that. Sometimes they're right. Sometimes they're wrong. In this case, the Colts and the Jets were right about what the Patriots were going to do. And on the flip side of that, I think that their offense has lacked a lot of creativity. And I know we'll get into that with the coaching. But at the same time, it seems like they're running a real basic call. So I would be a little bit alarmed about that if I'm the coaching staff, because they need to vary things a little bit more than they are now. Because, going back to that game, their first down running in that game, we know the Patriots want to run, and we know the Colts are a good run defense. I believe they're in the top 5. But, when you're 15 runs on first down throughout the football game,
bingo,
are averaging 1.8 yards a crack, well, is that just the offensive line, or is it because they know what you're going to run and have adjusted accordingly? I think, again, that's a little bit of both. The offensive line hasn't been good, but I think that teams are onto what they're doing.
Yeah, very, very well said. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the early penchant for running the ball on first down. It's giving the opportunity for the opponent to be able to sit on the run on early downs. When you do that, you become so predictable as an offense. And from a defensive perspective, it really sets you up to take a look at what teams are going to do on second, definitely on third down. If they do extend to fourth, which is very rare, but sometimes it does happen, it even gives you a little bit of an insight on as to what they're going to do there. So this is something where the Patriots maybe are making it a little bit easier on the opposition. And I think that's what Bill Belichick was stating in his comments. You're absolutely right. He did say that's what good players do. They call out audibles. Well, they'll call what they see, and they'll try to alert their fellow defenders that this is what's coming and this is what we should be ready for. As an offense for the New England Patriots, they have to be ready to counteract that. They have to be ready for the defense picking up and seeing that, and then being able to adjust and maybe make a play on the fly or two that might not be something they expected, but it's something they have to be at least prepared for. And I think that's where you're going to see a lot of efforts focused this week, whether it be strategy sessions for the players or whether it be strategy sessions for the coaches. I think that's where you're going to see a lot of the efforts really, I think, focused for the Patriots to try to see if they can develop ways where they can make their offense less predictable. And even if some of their first looks are predictable, try to see what they can do about making some of the next level looks a little bit more complex. So, Steve, as always, you kind of bring the mood down to the point where, and I mean that as a compliment, folks, you bring the mood down to a level where everyone's even keel and they see both sides of the coin. It's not dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria on one side, or no big deal, we'll get them, and we'll, in Bill we trust. There's a happy medium, and you have to meet somewhere in the middle. And Speaking of meeting somewhere in the middle, folks, that's exactly what Steve may be doing when he has some of the Patriots' grades in mind, because in just a moment, we're going to look at the New England Patriots' performance in all four phases. That's right, folks: offense, coaching, defense, and special teams. You know we like to end on a high note, so we're going to be starting with a couple that we think, at least I think so, but have a little underachieved this year. We'll talk about the offense and we'll talk about the coaching staff in just a moment when this episode of the Locked On Patriots podcast continues. But first, life is all about the great special moments, and commemorating those moments is so important. And that whether you're looking to pop the question or have a milestone to celebrate, or you want to let your love sparkle, Blue Nile can help you make your celebrations even more memorable. As the original online jeweler, Blue Nile offers the largest selection of independently graded diamonds and pieces priced significantly below traditional retailers. If you're having trouble choosing, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7. They're available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. You can shop stress-free this holiday season with Blue Nile's 100% satisfaction guarantee. All Blue Nile orders are insured and they ship for free in discreet packaging. They also offer overnight shipping if you're in a rush. So make your moment sparkle with Blue Nile. Go to BlueNile.com and use the promo code Locked On to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. That's Blue Nile, BlueNile.com, code Locked On to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. BlueNile.com, code Locked On. Patriots fans, my good friend and Patriots paisan Steve Balestrieri of PatsFans.com joins me here today on the pod. We are discussing anything and everything related to the New England Patriots' performance in the first 9 games of the 2022 season. Pat's sitting at 5-4. Steve, right now, tied with the Cincinnati Bengals for 8th in the conference, teetering on that windowsill of a playoff spot. They could go either way right now, and a lot of it is going to determine as to how they're going to perform when they host the New York Jets in Gillette, in Foxborough, coming up on November 20th. But Steve, the performance on both sides of the ball for the New England Patriots has really been an ebb and flow. There have been moments where the Pats have looked good on both sides of the ball. There have been moments where they've looked not so good. But overall, I think if you were to poll our listeners, the fan base, hearing a lot more positives about the defense and about special teams than I am about offense and about the coaching staff. So I know we always like to end on a high note here on Locked On Patriots, so let's kind of get the unpleasantries out of the way first. We'll start with the offensive side of the ball because I think this lends hand in hand with talking about the coaching staff. But offensively right now, Mac Jones missing 3 games due to a high ankle sprain. Definitely not an ideal situation if you're the Patriots. You don't like to lose your starting quarterback, disrupt your rhythm for any point in time. That's not to say that when Bailey Zappi came in for those 3 games that he didn't look very good. He did. He looked comfortable. He looked poised, showing a lot of confidence, showing a lot of command, running a Reader's Digest version, I think, of what the Patriots offense wanted to be, but it was working. And in that regard, I think a lot of people look at that as maybe a little bit of fool's gold when it comes to the Patriots offense. I think the running backs have been very good. I think the receivers have been about 50-50, and I think the tight ends have been fairly underutilized. But you see things us mere mortals don't see, Steve. When you're looking at the overall offensive performance of the Patriots throughout the season, how would you grade them right now? How would you rate this team?
Offensively, right now they're not very good. I mean, let's call it what it is. They're having issues at quarterback. Your quarterback does not trust his offensive line and protection, so his poise in the pocket and his decision making gets influenced by that. And so when your offensive line is struggling, it also affects your skill position players, not just the quarterback, but your wide receivers. Your wide receivers know they have to cut their routes short. They have to be looking for the ball faster than they probably normally would as the plays are designed, just because your quarterback's under duress really quickly. And the same with the running backs. When your offensive line isn't getting any push, as we saw in the last several games, your running backs are getting hit in the backfield. I think it was 2 weeks ago that Ramondre Stevens had, according to PFF, had 81 yards after contact. He only had 71 yards rushing. So what's that tell you? He's getting hit constantly in the backfield, but he's still making plays.
Right.
I think it's a snowball effect. And, it all starts with the offensive line. But right now, if you wanted to put a letter grade on it, the offense is a C-, and maybe I'm being a little generous there.
Yeah, I actually am writing currently and will be probably by the time most people are listening to this podcast. My grade, my midway grade point report for the New England Patriots in the first half of 2022, and that's exactly where I arrived for the offense, a C- with a C rising. I know I'm probably being a little bit overly generous there, but I thought the offense looked halfway decent under Bailey Zappi, and that's not a knock to Mac Jones. I think the offense figured itself out a little bit more, took itself a little less seriously, to be totally honest with you. And I think it was met with positive reaction. They utilized play action, something that I don't see them doing with Mac Jones. And I'm very confused as to why, because we saw Mac run this type of offense pretty well last year, and it did have pretty good results. So why all of a sudden the changes? Not completely sure. I know there are reasonings, for that. Some of that, which about the incorporation of the outside zone runs, maybe taking a little bit more of a vertical approach with Mac, trying to test his ability a little bit more downfield. I'm not sure if maybe this is the year to try to do that. Maybe the personnel is a little bit, lacking in certain areas. I know they've got Tyquan Thornton; he can stretch the field, but I think New England has to be a little bit more prudent when it comes to that. Stevenson is someone that I give the highest grades to. I think he's been phenomenal. To be honest, I think he's been their best offensive player so far. Receivers, tight ends, obviously things are progressing along there. I think the tight ends are a little underutilized, but we got flashes of that on Sunday against the Colts of what these guys can do in the open field when you utilize the seam routes. I thought Hunter Henry looked great on that 30-yard completion on a seam route. I'd like to see more of that. But ultimately, the offensive line, I think, really has been the most dismal part of what the Patriots have done this season. And this is disheartening for an offensive line that was coming in with a lot of expectation on its shoulders. A lot of people thought maybe this unit could be something good. Cole Strange is starting to look every bit the rookie that he is, and I think he's played well up until this point. I don't want to dump on Cole too much because he's gone up against some very difficult guys. We talked about this last week, Steve. You go up against Quinnen Williams, you go up against DeForest Buckner, you're going to take a lot of L's on that. There's no question about it. So before we start getting on Cole, let's remember, what he's done and what, the challenges that he's had. But ultimately, you have to judge the position fairly, and that I think has been a tough spot. And then, of course, right tackle. The revolving door at right tackle right now has been very difficult for the Patriots to overcome. Just too many moving parts, too many moving pieces. And that does lead me into my next question as to where you attempt to grade the coaching staff. Obviously, Bill Belichick is always going to get the benefit of the doubt. His resume speaks for itself. And I know there's some fans out there that will question moves that he's made, but X's and O's, you're not going to do any better than Bill Belichick, folks. You're just not. It's not a situation where he needs to go. Bill is the coach, and he will be here for as long as he wants to be. But the rest of this offensive staff right now, they have some splaining to do, for lack of a better term. When you look at this offensive staff, yeah, I mean, I don't want to steal your thunder. What are your thoughts on the offensive staff's performance so far under Bill Belichick?
Yeah, in regards to Bill, I still think nobody in the league can game plan like he can. Mm-hmm. I had this exact conversation with somebody else a couple of days ago, and the person I was talking to was not a big Belichick fan, and I was like, where would you think they would be right now if somebody else was at the helm? Do you really think they'd be better than 5-4? Because I don't. Now, with that being said, let's look at the offense. As you and I talked about many months ago, I thought they were going to groom Nick Cali to be the offensive coordinator in the future, and I thought they would ease him in to the play calling this year, and they haven't done it. And that to me is a surprise. Now, granted, Matt Patricia, I know he's the whipping boy for everyone in New England, but he brings that element of knowing what defenses like to do to the offense. He's been a head coach. Granted, it wasn't successful, but for the most part this year, I haven't had a big issue with the play calling per se. I don't have an issue with that. Some of the personnel groupings, I still have a little bit of a head scratching note to that. But when Matt came back off his injury, I thought they were going to continue to incorporate all the things they were doing with Bailey Zappi, putting Mac under center, using play action, throwing more on first down. They haven't done that. He's been in the shotgun. They've been running almost, exclusively on first down, and the offense has really struggled. And I'm not getting it. I don't get that. So, and the offense has been struggling all year. I mean, other than a couple of games, but you have to take into account who they were playing. The Lions have arguably the worst defense in the league. And, they were clicking, and you give them high marks for that because we saw the Packers didn't click against the Lions last week. So you still have to execute. But at the same time, take it with a grain of salt. I think that the offensive coaching staff is right in that C- range.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that as well.
A heck of a lot better than they have been.
Yeah.
Because, the one thing that we all can bank on in the 3 years that Belichick's been at the helm is they always put players in positions to succeed. And I don't think it's fair to grade Mac Jones about how they've been doing that. And is Mac above criticism? Absolutely not. He's made a lot of poor decisions, poor plays.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, it all comes back to are they putting him in a position to succeed? And by and large, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, again, I think in a lot of ways, what you're seeing with Mac is the penchant to, and I keep saying that word, but it really is kind of the best way to put it, to fixate on his initial targets. And I think a lot of the reason why he's doing that, one is, probably being a little bit gun shy. I think in there is an argument to be made for that. And if you're an NFL caliber quarterback, you need to be someone that is unafraid to be able to make those decisions or able to make them quickly. That's something Mac has got to work on internally and work him out. But at the same time, when you have a collapsing pocket, a rapidly collapsing pocket around you on nearly every drop back, it's going to make things very, very difficult for you to do that. So in terms of personnel groupings, like you said, it's really finding the right way to be able to find a happy medium to protect Mac and give him the opportunity to be able to find the time to make the throws that he's capable of making. When he doesn't, this is what results. And you see it, day in and day out, where he's just running for his life on more than one occasion. So in a lot of ways, yes, the coaching staff needs to take, I think, maybe a little bit more responsibility in that regard to make, better moves, better decisions. But the offensive coaching staff right now, I think, needs to step up their game a little bit in the second half and really find exactly what type of identity they want. Are they really going to commit to the outside zone run the way they wanted to? Are they going to make that a focal point and sprinkle in maybe some of the gap, maybe some of the pulling guards, things of that nature? Or are they really going to go back to being more of a gap team? And I think if they do that, I think they're going to see a lot more and a lot better results. Maybe they were waiting for the bye to be able to re-implement that so they could kind of tear down the wall and rebuild it. But I really think that a lot of people are going to have a lot to watch, especially in the first couple of games coming back from the bye. I don't want to move on from this subject without talking about the defensive coaching staff, especially the last couple of weeks. I love some of the adjustments that both Gerard Mayo and Steve Belichick have made in this regard. Play calling seems to be very, very sound, and these guys are ready. How would you grade the defensive coaching staff so far?
I think the defensive coaching staff and the defense overall gets a B with a bullet. I think they're getting better. I think they're finding roles for all these guys, especially the linebackers. I know a lot of people are still not sold on this linebacking crew. And, maybe because they're, a bunch of guys that aren't household names.
Mm.
But, you look at the game last week, and granted, the Colts offense is struggling more than the Patriots is. But when you get 9 sacks and you hold the opponent 0 for 16 on 3rd and 4th down, you're doing a lot of things right, regardless of your
Absolutely
your opponent. And, all the linebackers were involved this week.
Mm-hmm.
Judon, Uche, Mac Wilson, Raekwon McMillan, Anthony Jennings, Jelani Tavai. Jawan Bentley was, I thought, enormous in this game. I mean, when you get all of those pieces and they're all, competing and they're all producing for you, good things are going to happen. And I think it started with the defensive line. I think the defensive line is getting better when they get Barmore back. I think they'll be even better than they are right now.
Agreed.
And I think the secondary has surprised people with how good they've been playing.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right on that. And I think the defense has definitely been the strongest unit on this team so far. But they've also had some strong performances by special teams lately. But it hasn't all been pretty on that side of the ball either, folks. Steve and I are going to wrap up our discussion today of the Patriots' performance by talking a little more about the defense. And of course, we're going to bring in the other phase of the game that Bill Belichick says is ultimately important, and that is special teams. More on the Patriots' performance in 2022 when this episode of the Locked On Patriots podcast wraps up. But first, folks, wanted to talk to you a little bit about our sponsor today, and that is our good friends over at BetOnline, your number one source for betting football and the start of the new basketball season. For all of the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, in-depth analysis on every game, and more, check out our good friends at betonline.net. And as always, they remain your continued source for all of your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite games and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf, is with our friends at betonline.net. So head over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Patriots fans, the incomparable Steve Balestrieri of PatsFans.com joins me here today, providing some wisdom and counsel the way only he can regarding the Patriots' performance so far. Steve, we've talked about the offense. We've talked about the coaching staff. We've talked a little bit about the defensive coaching staff, and we kind of left off there in the previous segment, and I'd like to pick up there if you don't mind, because the Patriots' defense has looked very good at times, stifling, almost elite level defense at various points throughout the season, being able to contain, run well on all three units, and keep this team in every game that they play for the most part. The only times that the Patriots have mightily struggled on defense is when they're attempting to contain or marginally disrupt mobile quarterbacks. I probably would have gone with an A with a defensive output for the Patriots in the first 9 games, but I stopped short of doing that because you just can't ignore that type of a gap in their resume and not address some of the performance-related issues there. When you look at this Patriots team, is this their only weakness on defense, defending mobile quarterbacks right now? And how does it affect their overall performance so far?
Yeah, I think it's still a major issue for this team. I don't understand why it still is, but they just have this preponderance for leaving big gaps for mobile quarterbacks to run through. We've seen it. It's not a new thing. This has been ongoing for a while. It's something they need to work on schematically so that stuff doesn't happen, because they have a couple of really big games coming up against Josh Allen and the Bills, Arizona. I mean, so, even Minnesota and not so much Kirk Cousins is a scrambler, but he can still move when he has to. Same with Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. I don't think Joe Burrow is not a scrambling quarterback, but he's shown he can run if there's something there, and he'll take advantage of it. So they really need to tighten that stuff up. And I thought, with bringing in the more mobile linebackers this year, Mac Wilson, Raekwon McMillan, I think this is a time, maybe even Josh Uche, it's time for them to be able to step up and fill these gaps in. And if nothing else, leave one of them out there for a spy so that, we don't have a repeat of what we saw against the Chicago Bears. Need I go on? Baltimore. So that to me is a big issue. Other than that, I mean, if they're facing a team with a quote unquote conventional running game, I think they've held up really, really well, this year. So that's something they'll have to work on. And again, I think they have the pieces in place now, and they're now just finding the right combinations, because they have a lot of really talented safeties, and we've seen them all on the field as well.
Yeah, without any question. And I'm glad that you mentioned the linebackers, because I think this comes back to what you were saying in the previous segment about this unit playing toward the middle of the field, playing more from sideline to sideline, things that you didn't see a whole lot of last year because maybe the unit was a little bit too long in the tooth, or maybe they just weren't the personnel of the type of defense the Patriots wanted to run. They have that personnel this year, and I think they've done a fine job with it. Boucher is someone that I think has really surprised an awful lot of people in a good way, because what he's done is he's not only raised his game in the pass rush, but also proved that he's got a very intricate knowledge of what's going on the field at all times. Bill Belichick revealed earlier this week that he's actually calling the plays on third down. That's big for a kid that is, only a couple of years into to this league and still trying to forge his own identity. Matthew Judon talked about that last week. And I think that in a lot of ways, it's something that really the Patriots can build on, and I think they can be, an effective team moving forward in that regard. Very quickly, before we move on to special teams and wrap things up here, the secondary for the New England Patriots had a lot of scrutiny going into this. Obviously, not re-signing J.C. Jackson was a big hot spot with a lot of fans. A lot of people were not happy about that. It's looking like a smart decision. I say that with every bit of respect for JC, who I loved covering up here. But obviously, with his injury, it's looking like a smarter decision. But even prior to that, it's looking like the Patriots knew what they had or what they could become, even losing someone with his type of talent. Has this secondary surprised you?
Yes, I think it's been, we heard a lot of gloom and doom. They don't have a number one. They have a bunch of Jags. That was all, all through the spring and summer. That's what we were hearing. And they've been playing much, much better. I mean, I think Jonathan Jones has turned into, I don't want to say a number one corner, but he's pretty darn close at this point. He was always a tremendous slot guy. And now, even though he's not the biggest guy, he's really playing well out on the edge. Jalen Mills, he's been banged up, but even last week against the Colts, he made a couple of really nice plays. I can't say enough about the two rookies, Jack and Marcus Jones. I think those guys are destined for really big things in the NFL. And, it's again, snowball effect. You have a couple of really good veterans, and then you mix in this youth and speed that you have back there. Jack Jones is playing like a veteran right now.
Yeah, he is. He absolutely is, showing a veteran poise, a veteran presence that is beyond his years. And you forget that this kid is a rookie and a sixth-round rookie, to boot. So it's not a situation where, he's coming in to the game with, an awful lot of pedigree or a lot of expectations on his shoulders. Definitely off the field issues, definitely slipped him in the draft, but it has been worth the investment for the New England Patriots so far. One of PFF's top-rated rookies, and anytime you get that type of distinction, you're doing something right. I agree with you, Steve. The special team, excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself. The defense definitely has been pretty good, but special teams has been also a unit that was going to be under the microscope this year. For the first time in a long while, the Patriots special teams unit did not perform at an extremely high level in 2021. A lot of people were very surprised, not only at the lack of efficiency when it came to the punting unit, but also coverage units and the return game as well. Nick Folk has been just about as solid as anybody can be. That goes back to last season, continues this year. Folk gets the highest grades as far as I'm concerned. I give this guy a borderline A plus. He's been phenomenal. Every time you need a kick or a big kick, he's usually there to make it. The rest of the units, though, are interesting. I've liked what I've seen from the return game. The punting game has been a little bit of a challenge, and that surprises me. And the coverage units I thought have played better this year as well. But how has your assessment of this special teams unit changed from one year to the next?
I think they're much better this year. Nick Folk, it's funny. I was talking with Phil Perry from NBC Sports Boston yesterday, and I said to him, I don't know what kind of water they're drinking at the Folk household, but I need a couple of gallons of that stuff. And Phil started laughing. He raised his eyebrows. He was like, you and me both, because that guy's just amazing. I mean,
Really
talk
is.
about resurrecting a career here. It's like, whenever they line up for a kick, I don't even concern myself. I'm like, Nick Folk got this, because it's like, it's as close to automatic as you can.
Yeah.
Now, granted, he doesn't have the range of a guy like Justin Tucker, who I think is the best kicker I've ever seen in the NFL. But, inside of 50 yards or inside of that, Nick Folk is right there with him, I think. What separates Tucker is he can kick it from 60. But
Absolutely.
I think Folk's been fantastic. He was there last year. I mean, where would they be without Nick Folk this year?
Yeah.
I mean, look how many field goals he's kicked. 9 field goals in the last 2 weeks.
2 games. Yep.
Yeah, I really like the return game. I think it's just a question of time before Marcus Jones takes something to the house. Excuse me. The coverage units are a little better this year. They've had issues at times, but I really like to pick up a Brandon Schooler. I mean,
yeah, I do too.
Another rookie that's really stepping up to the plate. The only surprising thing to me is, Jake Bailey has not been consistent this year, and especially late in the game. Granted, the game's over. You're up 26-3, but
right.
A 7-yard punt that almost ends up in the crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, that is
eye-opening.
That was shocking to see that.
Yeah, without question. I mean, this is a guy that you and I have joked about putting, moonshots up there. A few of them. I've even teased you a few times during practice. I'll send you a text down in Florida, and I'll say, "Well, Jake just booted one. It should be entering your airspace around 12 noon. If he kind of gets them up there like around 10:30 when the Patriots have had early practices." But It's true. I mean, this is something that we're not used to seeing out of Jake. Just a couple of years removed from an All-Pro season in which he looked like the best or at near the top of the league at what he does. Punting is such an intricate art that you really can be at the top of your game in one moment and then just completely slip down the next. I hope we haven't seen a full-time regression, because we're still seeing elements of the fact that he can get the job done. Had a couple of decent punts on Sunday against the Colts, but then you mentioned the 7-yarder, and it's like, oh wow. I mean, it really is concerning to watch if you're a Patriots fan when it comes to stuff like that. So overall, I agree with your assessment in just about every aspect of the special teams. I think the special teams coverage units have been better. They're not perfect. They still need some work, but I want to give a tip of the cap to Cam Atchard, who I think has done a very good job of kind of righting the ship the way it was going last year. There were a lot of breakdowns in coverage last year. They looked lost at times. I think he's done a very good job of getting this unit back on track, and against a lot of odds, because a lot of people were calling for his dismissal last year. He really went through a lot, and to his credit, Cam never stopped giving that type of positive energy and really cultivating all of that criticism into something on the field and putting that forth. So ultimately, Steve, I mean, we can grade all we want to, and we have done that today, and I hope our fans and our listeners have enjoyed some of what we've had to say. I know they enjoyed a lot of what you had to say. You always provide that level of wisdom and counsel the way only you can. But ultimately, the Patriots grades this season are going to be determined by what we see out of the next 8 games for New England. A very tough stretch of the schedule coming up. You got 2 against the Bills, like you mentioned. You got the season closer against the Dolphins. You got the Jets coming up to bring things out of the bye. You got the Minnesota Vikings, the Arizona Cardinals on tap. A lot to do with the New England Patriots and a lot of tough teams on the horizon still. And the Pats are going to continue to ride that wave and see if they can turn a 5-4 record at the halfway point in the season into a playoff spot by the season's end. Not going to be easy, bud, but I think the Patriots will try to take it. Steve, what can I say? I thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join me here on Locked On Patriots. Before I let you go, my friend, please let everyone know where they can find you, interact with you, and what we can expect coming up as Patriots get ready to host the Jets in Week 11.
That's right. I mean, that is now a really, really big game for both teams. You know, the Jets are playing well above expectations early in the season. That defense is really legit. They have outside shot at still taking the division. You know, a lot of people would have laughed at that if you told them at the midway point of the season the Jets would have the same amount of wins as the Buffalo Bills. But that's turning into a really big game, and I'm really looking forward to it next week. But this weekend, I'm going to be doing the same thing you and I talked about. I'm just going to take it a little step further. I'm going to grade position by position and do their grades positionally at the midway point in the season. And, you know, we'll see where everything lies. But I think you got to just an early sneak peek at where I'm going with all this.
Absolutely. And you know what? We'll definitely be sure to tune in and we'll compare it side by side with this. No, we won't. Steve is going to take a positional look, and I think it's going to be a great opportunity for all of us here to see what the Patriots have done and where they might be going in the second half of the season. Steve, it's always an honor, always a privilege. Thank you for joining me today, and we look forward to having you back here next week on Locked On Patriots as we start talking about those Jets. In the meantime, folks, thank you all so much for continuing to make Locked On Patriots the daily part of your New England Patriots coverage and also your first listen every day. Now that you've made us your first listen, please make your second listen our good friends over at the Locked On Sports Today podcasts. Everything that you could possibly want to know in the field of professional and college sports in under 30 minutes, and also the take of the day. Locked On Sports Today is available on all platforms, including the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. On behalf of my good friend Steve Balestrieri, I'm Mike Debate. Thank you all so much for joining me here today and for continuing to make Locked On Patriots a daily part of your New England Patriots coverage. Until tomorrow, Foxborough faithful, stay safe, stay well, be the change that you wish to see in the world. Have a great day, everyone.